Midlothian, how are you doing? I'm Tim, and I'm here with Ronnie Morris. He is running for place 6 of City Council. He's running against Danny McClendon, Wayne Sheffield, and the incumbent Hud Hartson. Ronnie, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you. Appreciate you inviting me to be here.
Oh, I love that you're here. Hey, why don't you take a second and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your history?
Sure. My wife and I have lived here in Midlothian for almost 15 years, just shy of that. We've been married for just shy of 19 years. We have 2 teenage daughters that both attend Midlothian ISD schools. My wife was a school teacher prior to us having a family and making the decision together that she would stay home and raise her kids. And that's really what she's doing to this day, other than a part-time job that she has at our church that she's had now for about 12 years or so. I have been in law enforcement for nearly 30 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but nearly 30 years. And I currently serve as an assistant chief of police with a large city here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I haven't lived in the city. I've lived in the same house for almost 15 years, but I've lived in the city of Midlothian for about 5.5 or 6. If the math doesn't add up there, there's a reason. That's because I was annexed by the city in 2018 during the last round of annexations before the state stepped in and stopped that disastrous practice from municipalities for forcing people to be annexed into the city without any vote or say in the process. Mm-hmm. So, that was in 2018. Once I was annexed into the city, I kind of started paying a little more attention to city politics and kind of how things ran. I had a little more of a vested interest at that point. And for the last several years, although I think that we have a great city, definitely have great people, I love to tell everybody that there's one thing in this city that makes us great, and that is our people. And I think it's going to be very difficult to change that. But that being said, even good cities can be better. And there are some areas that I have seen in the city that I think that I can lend my expertise to with the nearly 30 years of working within municipal government. I have experience in writing laws, city ordinances, as well as laws that have been signed by the governor. So, and I navigate the highest levels of city government with city management, directors, city council, state elected officials, and even federal elected officials. So, this is not my first rodeo when it comes to navigating those waters. And I feel, and my wife agrees, that this is a good time for us to commit to doing what we can to help make the city better.
Okay, always important to get the wife buy-in, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So how long have you considered running for city council?
Well, that decision, the thought to run for city council has been several years. I've always known for at least the last 20 years that at some point in my life I would attempt to run to serve in some sort of elected office. And I've considered, would I run for Congress? Would I run for state senator or state representative? And ultimately, I made the decision several years ago that, if I run, I think the biggest impact that anybody can make is at the local level. Because it directly affects where you live. It directly affects the people that you know and love. And I think it puts a little more weight behind the decisions that you make when you actually have to face the people that are affected by the decisions you make. And that's what I would like to do. I'd like to make the biggest impact where I live.
Okay. Well, was there a particular something that triggered you to run at this time?
Well, my initial thoughts started coming back, obviously, in 2018 when I was forcibly annexed into the city. And when I started paying attention, I started, really recognizing some things that are going on in this city that I think can be done better. We're not going to be able to stop, and the big elephant in the room in the city is the growth that's coming to our city. And we're not going to be able to completely stop that urbanization that is just barreling down on us. But we do have the ability to slow it down a little bit if we have the courage of our convictions to do so. And the city council has the ability to pull back the reins and slow that down a little bit and position us in a more advantageous position to receive the growth that is coming. But with the growth that is coming, we have to be able to have roads that can support not just the construction of all the commercial developments and housing and multifamily that come along, but it has to be able to support the influx of traffic that is going to be coming into the city that doesn't live here day to day. So, I think that those are some areas that we can improve pretty significantly on.
Okay. I'm going to put a pin in that growth subject for a little bit later, but assuming you're elected, do you have like a short term, maybe like, the president has 100-day set of goals when they get elected? Do you have a short term list of things that you want to accomplish? And then once you accomplish those, what do you have lined out for the next few years of your term?
Well, I wish I could say that they're short-term and long-term. I guess for short-term goals, the city's getting bigger, and I don't know everybody in this city, right? I mean, it's hard to know 40,000 people.
Right.
But just like in my professional life, it's very important to develop relationships with community members, with business leaders, with the faith-based community, and all other people who have a stake in how this city operates. The last thing you want to do is try to develop relationships in a crisis, right? Those relationships need to already be longstanding, and that trust needs to be there. So, I would spend a lot of my time initially introducing myself to maybe the ones that I don't know, getting a comfort level with them, and start that working relationship. I would definitely get to know the staff and the city management, and because it's always unique, and I've been on the receiving end of it multiple times when a new council member comes on board. Well, how are they going to be? Are they going to support us? Are they, how do they feel about raises and benefits and, and things like that? So, I would definitely spend a good portion of my time. But then I want to get down to the business of why I'm running. So, some of the things that I want to accomplish as a council member, and I'll go in descending order here. So number 3, I would say, is the deteriorating and inadequate infrastructure, particularly our roads. I think that we're very enamored here with all the people that want to come to Midlothian that we think we have to rush to say yes. Well, I equate it to, you want to build a house, you have a vacant lot, and no one is going to go build a house and then do the foundation later. You have to build the foundation first, or that house is not going to stand. So that's where I stand on the roads and other infrastructure. We have to build that foundation to prepare ourselves for that growth to come. And right now, as I see it, we are not prepared to do it. I look at the traffic with the construction. I look at the daily commuter traffic and all the influx of people from other cities, and I see a nightmare waiting to happen, and I see our quality of life diminishing because of it. And it's a self-inflicted wound that we see coming down the line, and I think we can do something about it more than what we're doing right now. So I would like to try to lend my thoughts and perspectives to that, and maybe a little outside of what the council and other people currently think. I think it's good to not have any level of groupthink, and I know everybody's independent on the council, but it's always good to have fresh ideas and faces and perspectives when it comes to that. Number 2 is the growth. And, it kind of goes together with my number 3 with the infrastructure. But, Midlothian is a very attractive place for people who want to live here, for people who want to do business here. And as I said a second ago, I think we're so eager to just accept any chain or big box store that wants to come here because the tax dollars they bring and it, it helps grow the city and it creates jobs and, and all the good things about it, but you have to be ready for it. And then you have another problem is, specifically about the new development across from Walmart. That is a big development with a lot of money being invested in the city. I spoke to a developer a few weeks ago who told me that he wanted to build something much smaller scale, a Starbucks size equivalent, but T. So it was a place that was going to be T, and he told me that he was rejected to build that because the streets didn't have the capacity to hold the additional traffic that would come in and out of a very small footprint building. But yet, and that was at 663 in Hawkins Run. So my questions that I have, and the first things I think is, how are the roads at Main Street and the frontage roads of 67 any better or in any better condition to receive the even more traffic than what a T place would receive? So, I think we really need to dig into our priorities, take a long look in the mirror and say, that growth is going to come because people want to be here. Texas is a bastion of freedom, and Midlothian people want to be part of it in Midlothian, and I'm all about that. Let me get to my number one: community safety and quality of life. Why is that number one? Because without it, the other things that I just mentioned are meaningless. Mm-hmm. So I think, in a growing city, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain that feeling of safety. And, a lot of people will not move to a community if they feel that it's not safe, or that businesses won't come if they don't feel like it's a safe place. And the customer recidivism will dwindle if they don't feel safe going to a city. Now, Midlothian is not in a place where people will think that, hey, we're unsafe and I can't go there. But with growth comes other issues, specifically, in the types of developments that we bring. So we have to be safety focused on everything that we do, because without that, our quality of life diminishes, and none of those other things that sound so great about bringing the revenue into the city through commercial development doesn't really matter. I do want to make another point. I am not anti-growth. I am pro doing growth the right way. Anything that takes the tax burden off of the people who live here in the city, I am all about. But to me, those businesses have to make sense. And if they don't make sense, we don't have to take them just because they're easy tax dollars.
Right. Okay. Well, in that vein, and you spelled a lot of that out really well. In that vein, is there anything in recent council history that you might have, if you were on the council at the time, handled differently?
Yes. Specifically, let me give you two specifically. One would be bonds. So I think that when we go to our public and we ask them to trust us and vote on hundreds of millions of tax dollars that we're going to spend, and we tell them we're going to be fiscally responsible, that it is incumbent upon us to keep our word. And now, I'm not saying that anyone from the council intentionally was misleading to anybody, but these are the ways that things come whenever you don't do things in order. So we currently have a police station and a city hall that are both $8 million over budget, $16 million total. So one of the questions that I ask is, well, don't you think we could have avoided that if, one, we were a little more shovel ready to start those projects closer to when the bonds are passed, so that we don't have to deal with as much inflation? And two, shouldn't we invest a little bit more on the front end to make ourselves a little more shovel ready on the back end, so we're not waiting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years for bonds to come to fruition? So now what do we have is we've got these buildings that we can't build at what we told the taxpayers they were voting for. So that breeds trust issues with the government, and I don't think that that's a good thing. We have a road, Walnut Grove, that that bond passed many years ago that's just now coming to fruition. And, 2024 roads, you can't purchase with 2017 dollars. It's just the way that it is. It's the reality. So I would love to see a city ordinance that would call for any bond that does not break ground within 12 months is rescinded. Because if we can't do it for what we tell the taxpayers we're going to do it for, we have to keep our word. Our word has to mean something, and that doesn't mean that we'll just find millions of dollars laying around somewhere to cover the cost, right? We need to stick to what we tell our voters that they're voting for. Two, I was not happy with the raise that the city council voted themselves. I'm not saying they don't deserve a raise, but my point is, it is the taxpayers and the citizens of this city who determine your effectiveness and how they feel about you. So if the city council wants a raise, which I would be perfectly fine with it being a full volunteer. But as a matter of fact, I was surprised several years ago when I learned that council members get paid. I think that should have gone to the voters to make that determination on whether or not they deserved a raise. And again, I'm not saying they did or they do or they don't. I'm just saying that's a voter decision. I don't think that should be the decision of the people who receive that. Second best would have been voted in, delay it for 3 years, so no council member will receive it under their current term. So none of them would be guaranteed to actually receive that raise. I think that also comes down to accountability to our citizens and actually caring what they think about us and being willing to receive that feedback on how we are representing them, because that's what they do. They're the voice of the people. And I think the voice of the people wasn't heard. They probably would have got that raise if they had done it, but the people's voice wasn't heard.
All right. Okay. So earlier you spoke about the Weber development, the current Weber development. Some people know it as the upcoming Lowe's shopping center, and sounds like we're probably going to get another Chick-fil-A out of it. But what thoughts do you have on that shopping center, where it's located, the kind of stuff that's supposed to be coming in, the features of it, that sort of thing?
So, I'm not sad about the Chick-fil-A. I know there's that's very controversial in the city about all the chicken places.
I don't think Chick-fil-A is controversial.
I love Chick-fil-A. I'm sorry, I love Chick-fil-A. But the Lowe's, one, in thinking that number one, like I said before, we're not prepared to receive it, in my opinion. Two, they want to do a these are my words, not theirs, but a dressed down elevation, designed to be more in keeping with downtown. I don't know how much more dressed down you can get than what a Lowe's looks like. I mean, it's pretty stripped down, but I've seen the elevations and I've seen what that will look like. It's nice. It really is. And I think it would be great in the future whenever we build that foundation that's ready to receive it. But, the other concerns that I have with that is, are we overly saturating our city with similar businesses, right? So, the first things I thought about when I heard about this were, there's a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit of overlap with Walmart just right across the street with some of the things, that they do. Not big enough to say we won't do it, but on the other side of that, we have a Tractor Supply. There's some pretty big overlap there. Then we have a decades-long standing Ace Hardware in town. And then we have the McCoys down on the highway. Are we picking winners and losers when it comes to the decisions that we make? And is that business right for Midlothian? I'm not here today saying that it is or it isn't. What I'm here saying is we're not ready to receive it. And what I also know, when a big box store comes, a lot of other stuff come with it. I think, Walgreens and CVS and Home Depot and Lowe's ought to file harassment suits against each other because one always follows the other. So if we have a Lowe's coming, it's probably pretty safe to say Home Depot's going to want to come. And are we going to be able to support that as well? And I know that there's a big rush. Well, if we don't take it, Venus will get it or somebody else will get it. But like I said a while ago, in my opinion, Midlothian is the prettiest girl at the dance. And if there's a boy that wants to dance with her, he'll wait.
Okay. All right. So on the subject of growth, but not so much new stuff, our old downtown. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a lot of changes happening down there. The city hall is obviously the biggest noticeable change. What are your thoughts on what's happening downtown and about the future of our downtown?
You know what? I'm mixed on downtown. I see a lot of great things coming, and I like the really revitalization of downtown. I'm pretty concerned about rents down there. I'm seeing a lot of business being run off, good businesses that are good for the city being run out because they can no longer afford to be there. And I have to, how do I reconcile that with all these tax deferments and abatements that these large commercial developments are getting, but our mom and pop shops are being run out because they can't afford the rents. So that really bothers me. Specifically about the what I like to call the monument to government right there in downtown, not a fan. That is some of the most prime real estate in all of Midlothian that will now never have income tax revenue coming because we'll never have a business there. It is just going to be this large, as I hear it called all the time, crown jewel of the city. Well, there's, nothing tax funded should ever be the crown jewel of any city. But we should also, in my opinion, not be taking prime real estate and paying top dollar for it and spending our tax dollars in an area where we could actually be bringing revenue into the city as opposed to spending tax dollars on it. So not a fan of that. But downtown overall, I'm pretty happy with. I think we could use some work on roads and things like that leading into it. I recently heard the bridge that goes over Main Street, 67 Bridge over Main Street, called the Gateway to Downtown. Well, I hate to say it, but the gate is broken. If you've seen the retaining walls on either side underneath that bridge, they're both literally crumbling and have been for years. And we're just neglecting it. So that's what I'm saying. We have needs that we need to address, but we seem to be laser focused on luxuries. And I think we need to shift our priorities.
Okay. Switching gears, there have been some recent news stories on TV regarding our police department. I don't know if you've seen any of these, but do you have any thoughts on them?
Yeah, I do. So I saw the stories, and I read the full. It was about a 20-page report.
19 pages.
That was posted. It wasn't good. It's pretty concerning. But I will say this. I don't see that as an indictment on the rank and file men and women of the Midlothian Police Department. I don't. I think they are good, servant-hearted people who risk their lives coming here to make sure that we can all live the way that we do. So I don't think that it was an indictment of them. I'll be honest, I think it's a serious indictment of the leadership at the police department. And I hope that the city council and the city management will take that report seriously because it was disturbing in many ways, and that the leadership at the police department, all the way to the top, needs to get the priorities in order and start focusing on serving our citizens the way we deserve to be served.
Okay.
And that's coming from a near 30-year police officer. You always hear nobody hates bad cops more than good cops. Well, nothing frustrates good cops who do things the right way to see people who aren't.
That's fair. That's fair. So I don't know exactly how much you've kept up on the P&Z side, but we have several hotels in various stages of approved or seeking approval or in the early stages. Do you have any thoughts on our incoming hotels?
I do. I'm also split on that. So we need hotels here. I mean, we do. We've got, the city is growing. We have visitors that have events at the conference center. They're visiting family or the hospital, right? We need places for people to stay. Do I think we need 5 hotels? I'm not saying they're building 5 hotels, but we're going down that road to 5 hotels. No, I don't think we do. And any hotel that we bring in my opinion, needs to be on the highway. I know that there's a hotel potentially coming on the inner loop over there behind the Waffle House. I think that is a terrible place for a hotel. Everything's great when it's new. But once things start getting older, ownership starts turning over, which tends to happen specifically with multifamily and hotels. Turnover is pretty regular. And those types of places tend to deteriorate. And when you put them, pretty much in the city center like that, it can really reduce the quality of life and the aesthetic that people are looking for in that area of town, right? It's hard enough to see those trees go away and not have that feel that we're so accustomed to here. But to put a hotel there is I think, a bad choice. And in my profession, hotels, if they're not done correctly, they can breed crime. And are a great place for criminals to retreat to. And depending on how they're run and depending on how they're designed and how they stand up over time, they can actually become an attractive nuisance to criminals. And we need to just be very wary of that and make sure that everything that we say yes to, that we're laser focused, not just on, hey, again, great, we got tax dollars coming in, we've got new development coming in, but what are the consequences if we do this right? What are the consequences if we're wrong? And how will this affect the people who live here and do business here if we get it wrong?
Okay. And one more put you on the spot subject. Our sanctuary city legislation that was passed recently, legislation regarding abortion.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I thought it was very bold to bring forth that topic. I will also say I could not be more proud of the 5 people on that city council that voted for that ordinance. I am unapologetically a follower of Christ. I believe all human life has value and worth, specifically innocent life. And if there's ever anything that we can do to potentially protect the unborn, and we don't, you've got a lot to answer for when your day comes. And thank you to the 5 council members who had the courage of their convictions to stand up and save the unborn. So that is to say I support.
Okay, well, yeah, you were clear on that for sure. Well, Ronnie, as we wrap things up, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know election season is short and intense, and you making the time to sit down with me really means a lot, and I appreciate that. I want to give you the opportunity to speak directly to the citizens of Midlothian and tell them anything you'd like to hear and solicit their vote.
Sure. And thank you again for inviting me here. This has been a great time. Time's kind of flown by. I do want to say that I made the decision, my wife and I made the decision for me to run, and it was no easy decision, but the reality is we love this town. This is where, I say it 100 times, but this is where, we have chosen to raise our children. This is the only home my kids have ever known. They're both teenagers in middle school and high school. This is where our church family is, where our neighbors are, where our kids' friends are, and we live in this city in every sense of the word. This is our home, and I don't take that lightly. And when you love something, I think you fight for it, and you try to make it better, and you try to leave something behind for your family. I want nothing more than for my kids to be able to come back to the city of Midlothian with their own families and live here. And if they choose not to do that, when they come visit their old mom and dad, I want them to be proud of where they came from. And I want them to be able to recognize the city that they came from. And I don't know that in 10, 15 years from now that we'll be that recognizable. We get one chance to build this city out. One chance. And there's no do-overs. So if we don't get it right, the consequences are pretty severe. So I think, the decision points that the city council has are facing here over the next few years are going to be paramount to what our city will be for the next generation at least. So, like I said, when you love something, you fight for it, and home is worth fighting for, and that's why I've decided to run. And that's why my wife and my kids have decided to support me wholeheartedly in this, because we all have a vested interest. So I appreciate the support that I've received from everybody. I'm making it a point to talk to as many people as I possibly can. I'd love for you to reach out to me through my Facebook page, or I'd love for you to give me a shout through my email at morris4midlothian@gmail.com, and that is 4 spelled out, not the number 4. And I'd love to sit down and talk to you and hear what your perspectives are and what you would like to see from your council and the people who represent you in the city. I think that's very important. But I'm asking you for your support, and I'm asking you for your vote. You can count on me to do what is right and have the courage of my convictions on every decision that I would make. So thank you for that, and I'll see you around town.
Midlothian, thank you for taking your own time and investing and learning about the candidates here in Midlothian. Thank you, Ronnie, again for joining me. Midlothian, as you go to vote, make sure you know as much as you can about the issues that you're voting on and the people you're voting for. You can always count on us to share as much information with you as we can about the candidates, and I hope you to use that to better your city. Stay classy.